is the closest thing I have to anything that looks like it's actually made of gold. Although this is from Yu-Gi-Oh! And this is a One Piece video, and Millennium Puzzle. I still have to do that Yu-Gi-Oh! Video I was going to do at some point, but Millennium Puzzle. Okay, so, next one of my, canon couples. Well, this one's kind of quote-unquote canon because it's from a movie, but I really liked how they portrayed how they portrayed this character and these characters in the movie, even with the little bits that we got to see about one of them. So this one is called Gilded Love, and it's a reference to, of course, Gilded Tesoro, who is, of course, the Casino King. He's the main villain in One Piece film Gold. He has the Paramecia Devil Fruit that is the Goru no Mi, or the gold fruit. So it allows him to create, I don't think he can create gold, but he can manipulate gold. And I really like how they, did his character in the movie. I've only seen the One Piece movies that are I've seen Strong World and Film Z and Film Gold and Stampede, and I'll see Red when it comes out, and I've seen Heart of Gold. But I haven't seen a lot of the ones at the beginning, but I really like how they designed Tesoro's character and just kind of how they, went about setting up the way that he was portrayed. So the two characters that I am going to be talking about, as I said, one of them is Gilded Tesoro. The other one is this character from his past, this woman whose name is Stella. And she is actually a slave, as in a slave for the world nobles. She was at one of the, the humans for sale shops that they have, kind of like the one that's in Sabaody, but it wasn't an auction house. It was she was just kind of one of the slaves that sits in the window, and people walk past and they see her. And Tesoro saw her. We do get some flashbacks in regards to Tesoro. We know that he didn't come from a very happy family, that his mother and father were probably quite abusive. I don't know if we ever see his father, but his mother seemed rather abusive. Tesoro very much wanted to sing and perform and everything, and his mother just told him that it was stupid and ridiculous, and just stop that pathetic singing and everything. So we get some bits of his background, as opposed to Douglas Bullet from Stampede, where it's just, I am strong, I will be strong, I am strongest. Tesoro at least has a little bit more of a backstory that we get to see. And, eventually he does end up turning to a life of crime and everything, and, gambling and everything like that throughout the course of, as he grows up. And, eventually he runs away from home and everything. And, at some point when he's about 16 years old, he starts, he has this horrible, devastating loss at one of these illegal casinos that he works at. And his friends desert him, and this results in him becoming enslaved. And he manages to escape being, the slave dealer, suffering many injuries in the process. We do see, at some point he is a slave to a world noble. But I know that the world noble slaves are not branded until I believe they're officially owned by a world noble. So I will get to that. But during this time frame, he meets this other girl named Stella at the human shop, and they fall in love. So it's kind of they're separated by the bars of the human shop. Tesoro managed to escape, but she is still there. And it becomes his new goal in life. His new goal is now to buy enough, get enough money so that way he can buy her and then free her. And she seems to be very sweet. She doesn't, we don't know exactly what kind of treatment she's receiving at the human shop. Unfortunately, it's probably not a whole lot better than any of the other ways that we've seen slaves be portrayed in regards to how they're treated, either by the world nobles or anybody else that has them. But, she's probably at least fed and, at least something along those lines. But, Tesoro comes and he'll sit outside of the cell where she's, the window cell where she's, being held and like is on display. And he'll come there and they'll talk, and like he'll sing for her because she likes his singing and everything. And, they eventually fall in love. And, but Stella states that she hates criminals. Understandable. She's technically in a situation probably because of, criminals, probably pirates or other slavers that captured her and then took her and sold her here. Give or take whatever interaction that resulted from. And she just says that she doesn't like criminals, so Tesoro decides to start legitimately earning money in order to purchase her. And so it's like he probably goes around and probably gets like real jobs and everything, does his best to like actually earn the money in order to buy her. Which, given everything that we've seen from him, is rather admirable. And what ends up happening, unfortunately, is a world noble actually comes into the picture. And he, it's been about 3 years, and Tesoro's been, saving his money in order to buy Stella so he can free her. And a world noble comes into the shop, in the 3 years, and he buys Stella in an instant. And he starts dragging her away and everything because, like, she's kind of resolved to her fate. She's like accepted that this is most likely going to be her fate. She'd probably accepted that a long time ago. Like, she probably appreciated the fact that, like, Tesoro was just like, I'm gonna save up my money and I'm gonna buy you. And, she probably appreciated that, but she probably understood that that was a very low chance of happening. And what ends up happening is when Tesoro sees her being dragged away by the world noble, and I don't remember if we ever get a name on the world noble. Even if we do, it's not really that relevant because technically it's a non-canon world noble, but still just miscellaneous world noble that everybody hates. Everybody hates. And, while he's dragging her away, Tesoro is actually there to witness this, and he's very enraged, and he tries to attack the world noble. And Stella actually, like, she kind of smiles at him as she's being pulled away, and she, like, thanks him for how kind he was to her, for coming and talking with her and singing to her and everything, and that she wishes him the best. And Tesoro, as I said, he tries to attack the world noble, and he's defeated by the security guard, and as a result, he is enslaved in Marijois. Yeah. Yeah, so he gets enslaved, and so he did get the hoof of the dragon branded on his back. This is the image of that. And for, I think it's about 2 years later is when we're told that Stella died, or when he's told that Stella died. So let's see here. He's 16 years old when he ends up becoming a slave for the first time, and then he escapes and then meets Stella. So 3 years later would be 19. So he's about 21 at this point in time. 21 to 22 range. And what ends up happening is Tesoro, during this time frame, after, Stella dies and everything during her enslavement, and he's still a slave, of course, at the time, he becomes very obsessed with money and with gold and such. And he, it's like he was probably devastated by the fact that he found out that she died. Now there's always the possibility that, maybe she didn't actually die. Maybe she, was just like sold to someone else or something along those lines. Maybe she did die. Maybe she didn't die. It's just stated that she died. And given that it's a movie, I can probably just, insinuate the fact she probably did die, unfortunately. And such. And what ends up happening is, of course, then, 5 years later, when Fisher Tiger attacked, so then when Tesoro is about 26, 27 range, is when Fisher Tiger, attacks Marijois, and he, frees all of these slaves, which includes the Boa sisters, of course, and Koala and Tesoro. And Tesoro manages to escape, and he changes the mark on his back from the, the hoof of the soaring dragon, the mark of the world government, of the Temerivito, into, he gets another brand over the top of that is just this giant star mark on his back instead. Befitting his transformation from the slave into a gilded king. And so it's, it's designed to cover the whole mark, just similar to the way that the Sun Pirates mark is designed to cover over, the hoof of the dragon, the way that Fisher Tiger designed that. Although I will admit, we don't know how prevalent the mark of the sun, and given things we've learned in One Piece very recently, with the sun god Nika and everything, that mark of the sun may have been around a very long time, and part of it may have been that, Fisher Tiger. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. I'll finish the tangent, and then I'll go back to Tesoro. I might do a video about this, though. But Fisher Tiger, he was a slave at Mauritius, so maybe he knew about, like, sun god Nika, and maybe he designed the sun pattern for that. But Tesoro did something very similar, where he, recovered the hoof of the dragon with this new mark instead, to burn it away, which was probably also extremely painful, but given everything he probably went through as a slave, was probably not nearly as painful as some of those other things. During this time frame, 3 years later, so when Tesoro, let's see, I said he was about 27, 28 range, so about 3 years later, he's about, 30, 31 range. And during this time frame, he finds out that the Doflamingo family, or Don Quixote family, are auctioning off the Guro Guro no Mi, the gold fruit. And, Tesoro sends criminals to the auction venue to kill many people there, and it takes the fruit, and then he gets it himself. Doflamingo is not happy about this, and he never actually intended to sell the fruit. He just wanted to, he sends his assassins to go and kill Tesoro, but they were defeated. And, we find out that, Tesoro eats the devil fruit, which, admittedly, the ability to control gold, pretty handy ability. I don't remember if it's ever stated whether or not he can, like, create gold, like, Mr. 3 can, like, create wax, or, different things like that, where they can, like, produce the substance from their body. But I do not know if it's ever stated that Tesoro has the ability to, like, create gold, which would be freaking broken. But in regards to the fact of, like, oh, we're going to mess up the whole entire money scheme of the One Piece world. Nami, I want that devil fruit. Although, send Tesoro to Shandia, where there's, like, just, Skypiea and Shandia, where there's just tons of gold in the Golden City, and he would just have a field day, I bet. Yeah, he would have a field day. But what ends up happening is Tesoro then, of course, 3 years later, he meets Tanaka, who's the guy that has the devil fruit that allows him to, like, pass through things. I don't remember exactly what it's called. It's like the through fruit or something like that. And, of course, during this time frame, he also finds Baccarat, and he finds dice and everything. And, like, several years pass, and they, of course, start building up the Grand Tesoro, which is his giant floating casino ship island country thing. And some of it probably starts out as, like, illegal deals, and he starts building up more and more gold because, of course, what he does is, and it's a rather ingenious plan, I will give him that, in regards to the use of his devil fruit, that so many, he gathers up all of this gold. Like, he uses his, his smarts and everything he knows from, like, working, probably having dealt with lots of illegal trade before. He, uses a lot of that influence to get what he needs, and then he just manipulates the gold more and more, probably, like, manipulating the gold into attacking people, and then he just takes the gold itself after he's done. And, of course, as I said, he gets dice and Baccarat and, Tanaka and everything. And, of course, Baccarat has her luck fruit, so she can, of course, take people's luck and everything, which is just broken in and of itself. But he, of course, builds up his Grand Tesoro. And, this is taking over, like, 2, 3, 4, 5, like, several years time frame. And, he's become very adept with his devil fruit. It's even stated, or I think it's stated that he is an awakened devil fruit user, which admittedly would make sense, given how much he actually probably trains with his devil fruit, but he didn't have his devil fruit nearly as long as, like, Doflamingo or Katakuri had. And I don't know if he would have had it as long as Luffy has had it. But then again, we don't know if like having your devil fruit for an extremely long amount of time guarantees that you're going to awaken it. Because, like, Brook may have awakened it, but we don't know. Moving on. But what ends up happening is he comes up with all these different schemes and everything, and at some point he kind of like partners with Doflamingo, I guess, because Doflamingo decides that, okay, well, you're at least worth working with at the moment. And of course, during a whole bunch of this other time frame is, of course, when we get the film Gold after, technically it takes place like after Dressrosa, but via canon of things, it's like, well, that can't happen because they're not all together right after Dressrosa because Sanji's gone, and then they have to go save Sanji and go to Wano and all that stuff. But what ends up happening is when the Straw Hats, they end up at Grand Tesoro at the giant casino ship island country thing, because the state is like within the domain of that, Tesoro is technically a king. And he was able to like buy the right to do that by like paying the world nobles. So he goes through this whole thing. I know this is basically just developed into like a discussion of Tesoro, but I will get back to how Stella fits into a bunch of this. We see this whole thing of like he despises rich and aristocratic and nobles and everything. He despises these people because they have all this money. And yet he uses all of his money in order to, cause people more and more pain. He lures people to his ship where he is, this, king, and like it's stated that like, oh, like Marines and pirates and such, they can be here at the same time, and the Marines aren't going to attack the pirates and the pirates aren't going to attack the Marines, because like within the domain of this one specific place, which is actually kind of cool idea, that, oh, well, you're technically not quote unquote wanted here, as in like your bounty is kind of not null and void, as we see what happens when he takes Zoro from the Straw Hats and is going to execute Zoro and then give him to the world government. But it's this kind of like, it's like neutral territory. And so it's just like, the Straw Hats can be there and they can see the Marines, and the Marines aren't going to do anything against them because of I don't know. Sakazuki might be the one exception, but necessarily I don't see Sakazuki being all that interested in going to Grand Tesoro to begin with. So, I don't see Sakazuki going there. I can see Kizaru going there. And considering that that Fujitora likes to gamble, I wouldn't be surprised if Fujitora has like gone to Grand Tesoro at some point in time. So those wouldn't surprise me. Aokiji, maybe. I can see Garp has gone here at least at some point. Has gone there at some point. It's just like, I can assume that they've been here at some point in time. That wouldn't surprise me if they have in the slightest. But what, of course, we see is Tesoro has built up this entire empire on this island where he has all of these casinos, and like there's these different levels of, there's the casinos, there's hotels, there's restaurants, there's all these different games that you, of course, can bet on that work along the same lines as gambling, of course. And then there's like these different areas where the people live, but of course, he's basically enslaved a ton of these people that work there. Some of them probably like willingly work there, like Tanaka and Baccarat and Dice and some of the other people, but Karina, but there's a lot of these people that are also enslaved there because like they owed him so much money in regards to like, he did the whole trick on them that he did with the Straw Hats where, they're gaining a lot of money and everything in regards to, they're winning lots of money. So he comes in, like he has Baccarat, like take away the person's luck, and then he, bets them whatever, and then like he wins. And then of course it's just like, oh, well, you pay me or you die, or you pay me or you're enslaved here, type of thing. And that's what he's done to a huge number of people. A lot of the people that tend to work there probably like they have to like keep the happy smiles on and everything, but they're enslaved to him. And of course he does this very cool trick that I do like with the gold dust, because like when you first enter Grand Tesoro, you get like this layer of gold dust on you, and then it's just like it kind of just stays there, and then he can manipulate that gold dust as needed, which is kind of what he does to the Straw Hats. At one point, and then of course they come up with the idea of, I love the fact that basically Film Gold breaks down to Straw Hats meet Ocean's 12 or like Ocean's 11, whatever. I love that concept. It's just like, we're going to break into the casino and we're going to get the money, and then we're going to get out of there with all the money, and then we're going to save Zorro. I will forever and a day find that hilarious. It's like I'm sitting there watching the movie for the first time and I'm like, this is very similar to Ocean's 11. It's like the Straw Hats do Ocean's 11. Although I actually slightly wonder if like any of the Ocean's 11 guys like Brad Pitt or, George Clooney or Matt Damon or like any of those ones, if they've seen, like, I don't know if they would have seen like One Piece, but it would be funny. I mean, like some of them have like kids, a lot of them have like kids and everything, so maybe their kids are into anime and they're just like, they watch the movie and it's just like, wait a second, I know this plot. I was going to do the whole concept of, does that mean that Luffy is George Clooney? No, although who could George Clooney play in One Piece? I'm off topic again, sorry. But, I'm like, wait a second, who could George Clooney play? Well, I guess he could play Smoker. He could pull off Smoker, maybe. Maybe. But, like, so they have to break in and get the gold, but it's actually not to get the gold, it's to get to the water. But there is this moment when, like, Luffy and Frankie end up down in, like, this kind of, like, this, golden desert area where, like, all of these people that are, like, I guess, like, messed up royally, literally at the casino, are down there, and it's just, like, there's no food, there's no water. They have gold, and, like, so it's just basically, Tesoro does this thing where it's just, like, you can have, all of this gold is yours, but you have nothing to buy it with, therefore it is worthless. And that's probably the way that he felt initially when, like, he saw what happened to Stella, where he sees her be bought by the world noble, and then he can't do anything because A, it's world noble, and he, of course, ends up getting, captured anyway, and then he sees the way that the world nobles just, like, squander their wealth, just, like, they use it for, like, their own entertainment of, like, oh, this slave doesn't interest me anymore, sell them or kill them or whatever, or, he sees them do this, and he just, like, I think a part of him is just part of, like, I went through this whole thing where I lost Stella, where I did, where all this horrible stuff happened, and I couldn't do a thing, and now that I am the one in power, I'm just going to make other people suffer the way that I suffered. Admittedly, he still kind of has to, quote unquote, kiss up to the world dragons and everything, or to the world nobles, which I highly doubt he enjoys. But he also gets, like, their money in return, to a degree. So, it's a little bit more of a maybe, maybe not type of a thing. But, we have this whole battle that happened with the Straw Hats, between him and the Straw Hats and his crew and everything. And, golden armor for everybody. And, when he's fighting Luffy, he makes this comment, because at one point he's literally got Nami in his giant golden hand, because he, like, makes a giant golden, like, Voltron. Giant golden robot that I am in control of, so okay. And, like, he's holding Nami hostage, and I tend to aim toward the Nami Luffy fandom. I do like that. But I do tend to go towards that. But, there's this moment where he's holding on to Nami, and he's, like, ready to fight Luffy, and, Luffy's, using his, Kong gun or whatever it is that he has at that point in time to, fight against him. And he, like, makes this comment of, like, oh, you think you can protect her? Do you, how I'm a god and you think you can protect her from me type of moment, where he is just literally, and it's like, there's, like, we're getting his flashbacks during this moment. And, like, we've seen, we've got, like, some glimpses a little bit, but this is where we get, like, the main pieces where we get the flashbacks of his story with his parents and his childhood, and then when he, met Stella and everything, and, seeing what happened with her and the world noble and everything, and him being enslaved, and how he, like, built up this empire and everything after he escaped. And, we see all of this happen within this flashback. And, I mean, like, I think we got, like, hints of it occasionally throughout the rest of the movie, but he's basically, we're seeing his flashback and seeing what happens with him. And, like, a lot of people I know were making comparisons between, like, oh, like Luffy went and he was able to save Nami from Arlong, and it's like an analogy of that. And like, Luffy will save Nami and everything. And, I mean, like Luffy's loyalty to his crew is like undying, and same thing with like their loyalty to him and each other and everything is like all undying. But, Tesoro is kind of like putting Luffy to the test of, maybe not consciously putting him to the test, but he's kind of putting him to the test in the fact that he's like, in his mind, he's like, well, I couldn't save my, my friend, my, my love. What makes you think that you can save her from me? I am the one with all the power here. You are within my domain. And Luffy, of course, knocks him the hell out. But we see the way that that Tesoro tends to act with like a bunch of the other women around him. Like Baccarat kind of seems to be like a friend. Karina is, she's like sneaking her way in and everything, and she's like been working really hard to like earn his trust and get whatever information she can and everything so she can rob him blind, which she kind of does. But we get this, we see like his interactions with them and everything. And then there's all these other girls that we see him around, because we see him at various points when he's like talking to the CPI Jacero agent, when he's talking to like Spondum or whatever. Yes, because out of all the CPI Jacero agents, Spondum is the one that you want to be interacting with. I'd rather interact with Stussy. At least she seems like she can carry on an intelligent conversation. Lucci, maybe. Kaku I wouldn't mind having a conversation with. And then, of course, at least two of them are now dead on Wano. But what ends up happening is we see these other girls that he has around that are all these they're all these beautiful, very, voluptuous and beautiful, girls with like the star and golden bikinis and everything. And like, they're around him, and like, they're probably the equivalency of like a harem around him and everything. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does stuff with them. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't do anything with them, that they're just there for show, because like his heart belongs to Sella. But I wouldn't, he doesn't quite strike me as that type of a person. But, we see the way that he interacts, kind of with them. And like, those women probably aren't 100% there by their own free will. But, throughout the course of the movie, Tesoro gets knocked down several pegs. But the thing that draws me back to Stella for why I have this video in the first place, why I wanted to do this video in the first place, is that when we first enter Grand Tesoro, when they first arrive there, we see him, putting on the show and everything, and this big, over-the-top, amazing show that he does in like the center area where like all the ships for the pirates and everybody else can come in and everything. And he puts on this huge show, and like Karina's there and she's singing, and like all these other dancers and everything. It's very Vegas. It's very, very Vegas. Which is the whole point. It's supposed to be based on Vegas. Vegas and all these other places where you can just like gamble to your heart's content and everything, and just like have decadence everywhere. And what happens is the show itself is called the Gold Stella Show. And like it's they're big bright lights, and it's Tesoro singing and everything. And I don't remember who they had play Tesoro, but like they did a good job on the singing. And what we see is, of course, he made this entire show. Technically, everything that he has done is all because of a result of Stella. He, when he first met her, he tried to actually like legitimately earn the money to buy her, because she doesn't like criminals. So he legitimately tried to earn that money, as opposed to like cheating his way to it and stealing it and everything and then buying her, because then if she ever found out, she would probably hate him even if she was free. And then, we see, when she dies as a slave, and then, when he finally escapes, he goes down this whole path of just, he becomes obsessed with gold and money. But I wouldn't say it's for the same reasons as like Nami obsessed with gold. We understand where her obsession with gold and money comes from. With other characters, with Douglas Bullitt and his like obsession with power, it's just like, okay, he was basically raised to like want power and want to destroy, and then things happen. With Tesoro, he didn't have anything. He literally came from nothing, And like he saw things from like so many different angles, and like he just basically eventually got to the point where he's just like, well, if I'm going to be treated the way that I've been treated my whole life, if I don't have money, then why not just use whatever means I can to get money, and then I can build this up, and then I can just, have fun torturing people and just like treat life like a giant performance, and everything that I am the one like being the puppet master of. Very similar to Doflamingo in that regard. So I'm not too surprised that there's comparisons with that and everything. But, Doflamingo took over an entire country and everything, and Tesoro literally built his own country. So, there's comparisons there. And like I talked about, like I did a previous video where I talked about like Doflamingo and Viola with like their relationship and everything. But I've seen lots of fan art that people drew of like Tesoro and Stella, with like her being there and like him like being very gentle and kind with her. And I can kind of think that if Stella had survived long enough for when Fisher Tiger showed up, which I know that this is non-canon, but still, like, if she had survived long enough for when Fisher Tiger showed up at Marie-Joie and, freed a ton of the slaves and everything, that Tesoro would have taken Stella with him. And that, they would have been together. And maybe he would have still maybe tried to get his hands on this devil fruit, but I don't think he would have gone anywhere near as bad as he did. And where we see him at in film Gold, I don't think he would have gone nearly that far. Because it's just kind of this whole thing of just like, if he had her there as like his guiding light, his star, because Stella is also a reference to star, and like he has this entire star motif, and the star on his back is like a tribute to her, of course, and the Gold Stella show and everything is this huge tribute to her. And if she had been there to kind of be more of his guiding light, then I'm not saying he wouldn't have at least done something, but he may not have turned out so bad, because what he had for her was real love. And I just wanted to do a video where I kind of talk about that. So it ended up being a little bit longer than I intended it to, but I went off on like 3 tangents, so sorry. Maybe I could do a what if video at some point. I don't know. We'll see. But that's what we have here. So I thank you for watching. At the moment, I was trying to think if I had any other One Piece couples that I could talk about, but at the moment I don't have any until we get any other ones. Oh, I will throw in a slight reference here that in film Stampede, in One Piece Stampede, they did have like a shot where we see Baccarat and Garatsu, and like they seem to be together. So I'll just throw that in here at the end, because I don't really care to do an entire video about Baccarat and Garatsu. Yeah, I don't know when the next like One Piece couples video will be, because I don't know when that would be, because I think I've literally talked about like every single couple in One Piece. That's like a major enough couple to like do a video about, or even like piece in with other couples. So I guess like the next time that I would do any type of a video about that would be like at some point when we get like more flashbacks, like if we get like a big Kaido flashback, which by the time this comes out, we might have gotten a big Kaido flashback, because these get recorded a couple of weeks in advance. But, we might have gotten a big Kaido flashback, and maybe we'll find out something about his wife or something, about Yamato's mother, or maybe there'll be like something else. Like when we get to Laugh Tale, when we get to like this whole big backstory for Laugh Tale, and like the whole Void Century thing, like that whole flashback arc, I am not going to be surprised in the slightest if there is at least some form of a romance that happens in that. Not necessarily Joy Boy and like some, not necessarily Joy Boy and a girl, or like, I don't know, Joy Boy and like, I don't know, Im Sama's daughter or something. I don't know. Or like him and the Mermaid Princess, the original Mermaid Princess. Not necessarily that, but like there might be like something that goes along with that. Although I do still do intend to do a video about like Luffy's romance with like Adventure, because I do see that as like a romance and like a setup in One Piece. So I'm still going to do that one, but that's what I have. I thank you for watching. I thank you for sitting through my various tangents that I went through, and I hope that you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. I make people happy. I am the only one who can grant them joy. I trap them, make them suffer, tear them apart, drag them into despair.